Whew, good people. So this collection of full tower cases could not be any more different. Just like me and my twin. What? We're the same person. Yeah, you wish. In general, I'm not a fan of such massive enclosures simply because I'm not the type of builder who can occupy everything inside of them. But I understand there's plenty of people who want a little bit more room for potential expansion, for doing crazy water cooling stuff, for doing crazy air cooling things. And if you're looking for a full tower enclosure, these guys are probably on your radar. And here's everything you know about them. The good thing is that all of these are very unique in terms of the type of features that they offer and the target audience that they cater to. And some of these are insanely priced. Just be warned. Well, look into the mirror. What do you see? Gorgeous, endless layers. That's what. Not just in the center, but damn, they went on the sides too. All right. We've got full ARGB, of course. This is not a pleb fan. The cable module is now smaller and can face either direction for easier mounting. The interlocking key is removable for improved compatibility, and the single cable is in charge of power and lighting via the Uni Hub or connect directly to your motherboard. The software controls everything or let the fan chill with 0 RPM mode. Infinite fun indeed. Check out the Infinity Uni fans down below. Okay, so let's start with the Hyte Y60. This is the in-house brand from iBuyPower, and this is being their first full tower, even though they're calling it a mid-tower. By the size of it, I would consider it a full tower. And it's awesome. It actually looks much better in real life than in photos because of all the angles, the ventilation lines, everything just feels consistent and part of this cohesive design, including the font. My gosh, I love the Hyte font. Of course, the dual chamber layout makes the case wider, but that is on purpose to allocate the power supply and storage in the back and all your cables there and have this whole front space for displaying your hardware and a much easier assembly process. As with most dual chamber layouts, we have the side ventilation that can house up to a 280mm radiator and up to a 360 up top. So in terms of water cooling potential, it is absolutely fine. The additional framing at the bottom to add height to the case is brilliant because it allows you to add two 120mm fans which are already included, so this whole bottom to top airflow is already taken care of by default. And this case is incredibly easy to work in. Everything is accessible, so the top, the bottom, just remove one panel, everything for the main interior, so removing tempered glass. The only thing is the pegs on tempered glass on my unit are kind of loose, so you have to rely on the thumb screw to really lock it in place. Each enclosure comes with this really interesting looking PCIe Gen 4 riser cable that is high enough to allow still low profile PCI devices to be installed underneath it into your motherboard, and you have this really nice package for displaying your GPU that doesn't destroy the cohesive design of the entire enclosure. And I really want them to sell this riser card separately because it just looks awesome. A few more interesting Timbits is that the rubber grommets on this case are brilliant. As you can see, they allow the cable to be slightly closer to the frame and not just kind of loose as they exit the rubber grommet. You can easily remove all the side glass in order to have full uninterrupted access for the interior. The I/O at the front here is well positioned regardless of how you have the case oriented on your desk. And overall, the Hyte Y60 being their first full tower, I mean, they did everything right. The assembly experience up to this point has been positive until I discovered a minor issue with this rear fan mount. Because of this unique grille in the back, we do have some height flexibility, but as you can see over here on this particular corner of the fan, you can go all the way down and you can mount all other screws except this one. That's an oversight. But an even bigger oversight is actually the top fan bracket because it can only be installed one way, this way. There's no way you can flip it down to allow additional room for the inside. With my motherboard, there's not enough clearance here with the radiator and the set of fans on this side of the bracket, which means you have to install the fans here or the radiator here and fans on the opposite side. And that is one of the worst installation experiences you can have when it comes to radiator and fans. If you've done it, you know. So Hyte, this sucks. In this configuration with the radiator and the fans on top of the bracket, it's not good because the panel cannot close. It has to be flush against the frame. And so you're kind of forced into using the radiator and the set of fans sandwiched together in between the fan bracket. Aside from that, the system looks totally fine. It is a little bit tight for the GPU since it's so close to the tempered glass panel. And the cream fans, the default fans, make it kind of difficult to mix and match if you're adding your own fans. But otherwise, the Hyte Y60 is still one of the most interesting looking cases out there. This next case is probably the classiest of them all, the Jonsplus i400. I mean, just look at the screw box that comes with it. Everything is labeled. I'm definitely keeping this for later, but also this exterior design is just so sleek. The dual panel glass, the beautiful sandblasted aluminum both in the front and the back, and that really lovely curve. The totem-like feet are removable to save on slight capacity during shipment, and also there's like certain mystery behind this design. I can't really put my finger on it. Although when it comes to actual user assembly, they have gotten a few things wrong. So it's not as accessible because the side panels have screws, so you require a screwdriver to remove anything, and they do sit below a beautiful magnetic top cover. On the interior, this one shifts things around a little bit with a power supply at the front, clearing up all the space at the bottom for additional intake for the GPU, while still allowing you to install up to a 360 radiator at the top, which is great, and that bracket is easily removable. I feel like they're definitely banking on this whole vertical airflow configuration just because the rear fan slot does not have a fan. Actually, the case has no fans at all, but there's a dust filter for the rear fan mount, which is very likely why you want to be utilizing this whole vertical airflow configuration. Fans at the bottom, something in the top as well, and then let it all escape. You can also tell this is meant to be built and put away just because accessing the power supply chamber is not very easy. Another panel requires 5 screws. You can also store additional hard drives underneath the power supply on this rail system. And these 2 brackets at the back for SSDs are hilarious because they're absolutely massive. I also feel like the glass on this side is appropriate just because of where the power supply is located at the front. And so all the cables will be exiting from the front where you don't see them on this side of the case. A little bit interesting design choice, but if you do mount any storage in this configuration, good luck routing those SATA cables properly. The I/O is basic, but it's good to have a Type-C Gen 2 port up there. And we also have this little GPU anti-support bracket that you can reconfigure depending on the size of your graphics card. CPU towers up to 168mm are supported here, and GPUs up to 340mm in length, which is plenty, so you can install the most high-end graphics cards in here with, in addition to being able to rotate the PCI brackets at the back for vertical orientation of the GPU, although strangely no riser cables included, so what's the point of that vertical orientation in the first place? Honestly, I don't understand why this case is so expensive, close to $400. The interior is not even aluminum. The only aluminum are the front and the back panels. That's it. The rest is steel and plastic, so it's a little much. It's fancy, it's classy, it supports all the great hardware, and it looks very sleek, but is that really worth $359? You tell me. Now, the more I work with this case, the more I get confused of who designed it and who they designed it for. Because in order to mount anything in the back here in your PCI expansion slots, you need to remove this aluminum piece, which is, by the way, not refined on the edges. I already cut myself, been bleeding for a couple minutes. Also, the screws that hold this piece together were super tight. I stripped one of the screws. I was almost worried that I won't get access to these PCI slots. Now you see my screwdriver fits in, otherwise it's way too much on an angle, and everything of course is insanely tight by Thor himself. But in order to like just swap out a GPU, install anything else in here, way too much work, so just be warned. But really my main complaint with this enclosure is that the 8-pin CPU cable had to cross the entire motherboard to fit because there was not enough length for it to reach from behind the motherboard, and the cutout is super high up, so that's a big oversight. After having worked with it, the price point and the visuals just don't reflect on the entire user experience, so really disappointed with the i400. All right, so moving on to some bigger cases, here we have the absolutely gorgeous Corsair 5000T RGB. This would be the proper full tower if you want to hardware flex, but make sure to engage that core because this thing is a heavyweight. It's more of a traditional full tower in a way, with basically kind of like a mid-tower frame that has expanded in all directions, so lots of height above the motherboard for radiators, proper eATX motherboard support, unrestricted GPU space, all the fan brackets are removable except the top one, and you can do up to a 360 on the front, up to a 360 on the side, and 360 radiator at the top. And you can install them all simultaneously as well. Seriously, I would say if you want the maximum amount of breathing room for your components, the 5000T is satisfying in that department where you remove the side panels and everything is accessible to you. So check this out, this cutout on the power supply shroud, it's way too long. My power supply ends right here. There's plenty of room over here. The cables are visible. This is not a good design. On other cases, the cutout is a bit smaller, so you can just maybe reveal a little bit of the logo and stuff, but this is way too long. Also, the amount of work that is required to remove this interior cable bar is absolutely insane. It's 10 screws later. It's an unintuitive process to get you to the point where you want to install anything on the side in terms of cooling. But you also have to remove this plastic mount that holds the Velcro straps because all the screws are right underneath it, and it's kind of, again, like why. Also, once the system is assembled, I find this cable cover to be absolutely pointless and a terrible design, not only because of how difficult it is to remove it, but it actually does nothing to cables. It's more of an annoyance when cables are trying to pass through. I have very flexible cables from Fractal Design, thank you very much, and it was very difficult to pass it through the rubber grommet and through this thing. So I really don't like this thing. Should be redesigned. The SSD caddies are great and all, but the thumb screws don't have a screwdriver mount, as you can see on the top. So this is manual only, and on my sample they were way over tightened. I couldn't actually use my fingers to unscrew this, had to use tools. Not cool, man. Now the price point is a little strange because on the one hand, it reflects all the really fancy features. So the built-in Commander Pro for all the lighting and fan play, the 3 RGB fans at the front, the ambient LED strips both in the bottom and the top, proper dust filtration on all the areas with really high airflow dust filters. But there's just something that doesn't feel right for the $400 price point. I mean, this is Corsair we're talking about, so, you know, expect a premium, but something doesn't feel right about the panels. They're kind of bendy. The glass panel is a little too heavy, so the pegs don't fully align. You have to really push them in place. There's a bit of a mismatch in color between the plastic white and the metal white. And also for a case that would get super heavy because of all the things that it can house inside, there's no easy way to lift it from the front because of how low it goes to the surface. Also, this case does support vertical GPU mount, although it's way too close to the side panel, and there is no riser cable included. So you are paying a lot of your bucks for the bling and the potential water cooling capacity, but not that much in terms of the uniqueness factor outside of the RGB. I will say the I/O is pretty rich, so that's great, and also having those slight yellow details is a nice touch. Well done. But good people, perhaps we need to compare to a real monster. This case is an absolute unit, the Cooler Master HAF 700 EVO, and man, this thing has so many surprises on the innovation front that I feel like the Cooler Master team deserves some respect. Well done. First of all, you know it's going to be a legit full tower when there are 2 120mm rear exhaust fans to give you some perspective on that height potential. This front panel is an absolute heavyweight. It's probably the heaviest front panel of all front panels ever made, just because we have these individual tempered glass strips at the front for beautiful illumination, but also for an absolute ridiculous front panel. There's also an LCD here that can display all types of information from the software. So a lot of bling went into this case, but also I feel like a lot of proper bling because, I mean, it is just so cool. Also, this case comes with exclusive 200mm fans at the front. Cooler Master has done large fans in the past, and the HAF 700 EVO is carrying that momentum forward. Wow, this dust filter is huge. So is everything else around the case. To talk more about the design elements, the side ventilation is really cool, fits in the whole theme of the HAF series. The interior has so many cool features. So first of all, we have these toolless caddies that you can move around anywhere on the fan brackets, depending on how you want to build, how much storage you need, how much air cooling you need. There's an actual darkened mirror inside the enclosure, which is a first for me. It's by default, it's mounted on the side to give you the perception of 2 layers of cooling in the front instead of this one. And also you can relocate it to the bottom fan bracket to beautifully display the bottom of your GPU. That is absolutely next level from Cooler Master. They also love playing around with angled fan brackets that are all fully removable from the interior with easy installation, and you can angle the bracket up to 90 degrees for some extra variety and flexibility in cooling. Repositioning that mirror somewhere else is just, there's a lot of things that are done well on this case. The entire top panel can come off for easy access on the interior or installation of dual 360 radiators up top or a single 420. And of course, when you turn this thing on, the RGB on the front panel is really unique, and I think it's wonderfully done in terms of styling, but also giving this case just so much extra character. And then of course, a little screen at the front for circular information display. It's not necessary, but again, that one extra level of coolness kind of deserves them like a damn innovative award by itself. This interior could realistically eat a mid-tower just because of how spacious and roomy it is, giving you all sorts of water cooling possibilities. And this is probably the only full tower I would gravitate towards. There's something pulling me towards it in terms of style and everything on the interior, in terms of some of those unique features like the mirror stuff and all the little angled fan brackets. But it does cost $650. It is making it one of the most expensive cases to hit my studio. And I mean, it's going to house some really expensive hardware, I bet, but it's also part of that whole showcase piece. So I feel like it's very expensive, but also perhaps reasonable for the target audience and for people who are going to be populating like thousands of dollars worth of water cooling equipment alone in here. The HAF 700 EVO is probably the most surprising of them all because the entire user experience is absolutely seamless. So the power supply cables have enough reach to go to their desired destinations. I really love this whole toolless mechanism for the PCIe expansion slots that sit in confidently and are locked in place. Plus we have two captive thumb screws for the power supply mount, which is awesome and something new to see. Again, really fresh from Cooler Master. My only complaint are the power buttons and the reset are really hard to press because you have to go in really deep. That's the only drawback, aside from the price point, which is $650, but that's beside the point. But that wasn't the only EVO we got our hands on, because the Lian O11 Dynamic EVO stands for Evolution Continues. Man, this thing is next level. It's the original, takes the footsteps of the case of the year, puts it into the pot, makes a much better dish with it, and now we have this. A lot of the design is already understood when it comes to the dual chamber configuration, power supply, storage, cables at the back, and all your visually beautiful components at the front, with lots of potential for water cooling configurations at the bottom, on the side, at the top as well. On the inside, all the fan brackets are easily removable for installation of things outside the enclosure. You can convert any of those fan brackets to house hard drives or SSDs with additional little brackets. We also have an included set of side bracket onto which you can mount more storage if you don't want to utilize the side stuff for ventilation or radiators. They even went ahead and give us the flexibility of remounting the front I/O to either side of the case, depending on how you have the case oriented. I love this flexibility, and that is also because you can inverse the frame so that you can have that whole GPU at the top situation, perhaps for better cooling. I'm all about options, and the whole process doesn't seem to be so complicated. Lian Li, you keep impressing us. I love it. In terms of design, it's a super classic look. You just have to clean the fingerprints off the brushed aluminum and of course from all the glass, especially on the inside. That is an absolute pain, but the little ambient strip at the front is gorgeous and can display proper white as well, which is awesome. I also really appreciate how much height flexibility we have for that rear fan mount in case you have a really chunky radiator and fan configuration up top. You don't have to sacrifice anything for the rear. And the O11 Dynamic EVO, again, because of the whole dual chamber separation, one of the easiest assemblies you can experience. I do like these square rubber grommet cutouts that allow for unrestricted installation of side radiators, either 240 or 280, without any problems interfering with those cables. And the only thing to keep in mind is that you have to remove the top fan bracket because the mounting locations for the radiators and fans is blocked by the frame. That's the only minor thing, but it's better to remove it anyway. It's much easier to install this way. So in the end, I feel like three full towers stand out for me. The HAF 700 EVO is an absolute beast of an enclosure in terms of innovations, features, user assembly, just the sheer size of it. It definitely stands out in the full tower space. I love the Lian Li, kind of a staple, and the Hyte Y60. Despite the kind of a crappy top fan bracket, overall it's a very good experience as a first full tower / mid tower from the brand, and I feel like they're on the right trajectory there. So let me know which case was the most interesting for you. I'm Dmitry, thanks so much for watching. Check out all the links will be listed in the description below. I'll talk to you in the next video.